Kia ora tātou. It's excellent to be with you today in a bright and sunny Auckland, and in Auckland that the ground isn't moving under. Wellington's a bit disrupted at the moment, but all going well in getting us back to full capacity. It's been a really good test of our business continuity, particularly when, as Will says, we're in the middle of a significant transformation. But of course, every day we have customers like you to service, and I'm pleased to say that all of that is operating normally, despite the fact that we have a couple of buildings that are currently under repair. I want to talk to you a little today around what we're doing with the tax system. And there's some of you probably thinking, oh my Lord, never thought I'd listen to somebody talk about tax for 45 minutes, and I get it. And trust me, I'm not going to talk that much about tax. Because for me, what's really important is that actually the tax system works for the people of New Zealand. It's a part of our infrastructure that allows us to run as a country. It's the infrastructure that allows government to make choices around how it supports the people of New Zealand. And so I think of it not in terms of pages of legislation and complicated bits of law, but actually as something that's vitally important for all of us, and it has to work really well. But I'm also really passionate about ensuring that actually it does work really well from the point of view of you, the customer. Because everyone in New Zealand that I've met really believes that this is a great place to live and work. We're passionate about NZ Inc. And we're passionate about paying our share to make sure that NZ Inc. is a fantastic place to live and work, a fantastic place to bring up your kids. So I see it as my job to make sure that you can contribute to NZ Inc. through the tax system as easily and seamlessly as possible. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing to really lift our game in that regard. Inland Revenue, just for a bit of background, is a pretty large organisation and a pretty old one. Apparently we existed in 1870, and when we were the Land Tax Department, so we've been around a while. We have about 6,000 staff in 17 different cities and towns. A huge legacy IT system that has served us really well, but was built and designed in the late 80s and has all of the things that you would expect about a system of that age. It doesn't think in real time, it thinks in batches on a Saturday night. It doesn't really understand what the internet is. And it was completely organised around business process, not around the customer. So remarkably, it does us very well, but there's certainly a few things that we think we can fix up. So, you know, as Will said, we're apparently running the largest transformation in NZ at the moment. I'm not sure if that's true, but what I can say is that it's a huge opportunity, and I'm really pleased that we're able to take it and that I can share some of that with you today. Last year, I was privileged enough to spend a little bit of time with a man called Joel Slemrod. And now, Joel is the director of the Office of Tax Policy Research at the University of Michigan. And we shared our plans with him. And whenever he had heard that, his feedback to us was that it was the first time this man lives and breathes tax administration. Go figure. It was the first time that he had seen a transformation plan that was holistically trying to change the entire tax system from the perspective of the customer. And his other comment, which he made at a conference in Queenstown, was that, you know, we're taking advantage of the need to change that aging computer system to make fundamental changes to how tax works, including around information reporting. And for those of you who are probably much more, deep aficionados of Agile than I, you know, a couple of words in there that are really important: information and customer, and both sit at the heart of what we're about and what we're doing. So I get really passionate about the opportunity, as I say, to think about what we can do. over the next 6 years or so, we will totally transform the tax administration system of this country, changing how we work with customers, streamlining and simplifying policies so that we can then simplify processes, changing legislation in some cases, and changing our infrastructure. To put it in context, last year we collected $64.5 billion. That's about 80% of the money that government used to pay for services across New Zealand, hospitals, schools, transport, to provide the support that we're seeing at the moment for the people of Kaikoura and the upper South Island. So, you know, it's a pretty important piece of our infrastructure. And as I say, we have the opportunity to think about how we can make it more responsive as a tax system, to think about how we can fit it seamlessly into lives, and to really develop it in such a way that it works for people. So we talk really around this, a complete end-to-end transformation involving customers, our people, our processes, and our policy, and by the way, will replace some technology. Quite often I read reports in the media that will say that what we're doing is spending a lot of money on technology. No, we're spending a lot of money changing the system. And actually, when you look at that compared to what we spend every year, it's actually not a huge amount of money. But it is a significant sum, and really important that we deliver value and benefit from it. So what do we think we get? Well, for me, it's about increasing business confidence to be able to do business well in New Zealand, knowing that they've got less time, that they need to spend less time on doing business with government. I'm really pleased to say that with some of the changes we've already put in over the past few years, SMEs are telling us, small and medium enterprises are telling us that the time that's taking to deal with the inland revenue has reduced by 25% in the past 3 years. So that's pretty massive, and for me that means that businesses have got extra time to run their business, extra time to spend with their families, extra time to simply relax and refresh themselves and think about what next. And that makes me incredibly proud. So we've hardly ever started, and we're already giving back to our customers. We also manage a lot of the social policy system for New Zealand. We manage child support, we manage family assistance. And one of the things that sits at the heart of what we're doing is trying to get into a position where we have more accurate information in real time. And what does that actually mean in practice? Well, what that means in practice is that people who are due money from the system, they're due a refund or they're due some family assistance, get the right amount of money in their pocket at the time, don't end up in debt, don't end up not claiming some money that they're due because they're afraid of getting into debt. So this stuff has real practical implications for everyone across New Zealand. And we're really working on a right from the start approach that doesn't think about us, but does think about the customer. So if I won't tell you a little story, it might help you get a bit more detail or a bit more insight into what I'm thinking. And I want to talk to you by introducing you to one of our customers and how it could be better for this man. This man is Josh, the brewer. I don't know how many of you have been in Wellington recently, but one of the things that's happened in the past few years is, never mind being the coffee capital of the country, we're rapidly becoming the craft brewing capital of the country. So it's a really good experience if you haven't been down to wander around the lanes of Wellington. There's some fantastic boutique little restaurants, peanut butter shops, chocolate shops, and breweries. And I have been known to frequent one or two of them. And I find it amazing to meet the owners of these new businesses that are springing up and understand what the world is like with them. So imagine me sitting in one of these little craft breweries, some of them not that little actually, and talking with Josh. Now Josh is the owner of this brewery. Josh, by the way, is bearded, and according to my sources, which are of course Deep, being the Commissioner of Inland Revenue, all of the craft brewery owners in Wellington are called Josh. They're all bearded, and they all used to work in marketing. Go figure. So Josh has given up that wonderful 9-to-5 job in marketing and has set off in his own little world of running a craft brewery. Really easy to get started, jumps in the company's office website, registers his business, off he goes. Inland Revenue, despite the fact that you can register for tax at the same time, doesn't pay any attention to that. If we did, we could have sent Josh quite a lot of information to say, here's the things you might need to think about in due course about tax, but we just let him get on with things. After all, he's got a business to run. So he goes on, starts to brew beer, starts to sell it, and there's no sign of us. 10 months later, it's time for his first tax return. Now, one of the myths that I know exists in New Zealand, and interestingly also in the UK where I started my career, is that, quote, my first year's tax-free. Nah, sorry. But we do take the tax off you at the end. So after 10 months of triddling along, making some beer, buying some purchases, maybe selling some stuff, it's time for Josh's first tax return. He hasn't really remembered where he's put the receipts. He knows he created a file somewhere online, scanned some stuff, can't remember what he called it now, put some stuff in a drawer, doesn't know where that is. But anyway, it'll be fine, because at some point he'll get an accountant and he'll be good to go. Anyway, he does get some help, and they say, you owe us $30,000 to the tax man, because actually your first year has been doing okay. And you're going to have to pay that. And by the way this system works, you also have to pay $10,000 in advance of next year. So having not really understood what was going on, he suddenly realizes he's got a large tax bill. But again, it's okay, because it's not going to come for about another 8 months, so he'll worry about that then. No sign of inland revenue still. It'll be right, Josh, just you keep going. So by this point, he comes to about, October, November, and he's suddenly having to find $40,000. Where from? Where did that come from? How didn't I know? However, he's quite an eventful, guy, and so he thinks to himself, well, Christmas is coming. If I packaged up some of these craft beers into nice gift packs of 6, I can sell them and grab one and trade me and make a bit of extra cash. So he does, all great. But of course, when he fills in next year's tax return, he forgets about that month's sales on Grab One and Trade Me, because they weren't really running through the bar like everything else, And then my staff get hold of the information from Trade Me and Grab One and say, Joss, why wasn't that in your tax return? And not only does he owe us the money that he originally owed us, but he owes us some more. And now he's really struggling to find that and pay that. Now, that sounds like a pretty horrific story, and it is. But it actually isn't that far off what the experience of a new business in New Zealand is like with the tax system. We don't do as much as we could to help a new business get it right from the start. And really, if I think about transformation, I think about someone like Joss and think, we can do this better. And we can change the policy and the legislation as well as how we work to make it better. About 2 years ago, I was privileged enough to spend a morning with a small business person in New Plymouth. And I will remember it and hold it close to me right through our transformation for all of our journey. So this man was running a small construction company. He had about 6 or 7 guys working for him. And he was sitting down to do his pay-as-you-earn return for them, to pay their wages, really, and then let us know what had been going on. But he actually paid his wages weekly, but we currently ask for you to pay-as-you-earn over and the information about it monthly. So you might have paid your staff weekly, and some of you may indeed be employers. Having collected all of that information, having worked out what tax had to be withheld, We say, can you hold that information there for a few weeks and then put it all onto this very special form for us at a monthly period. So he had a piece of software, which was great. He had payroll software that worked out how much tax he needed to withhold and what the information was that he needed to give us. He then had to go into that payroll software, which didn't talk to our payroll, employer monthly schedule software, and cut and paste everything from one to the other. Now, he was quite organised and he thought he'd make the payment at the same time for us, which was fantastic. So he then opened up his banking system, and his banking system didn't talk to the payroll software nor us. So we had 3 screens that he was cutting and pasting information from. Awkward for him, time-consuming for him, and needless to say, we find that an awful lot of people make some very simple mistakes simply because that's what you're doing. Of course you do. I'm really pleased to say that actually what we're thinking about with transformation are systems and processes that change the world. So that man with his employment, we've just announced some legislation that will allow you, whenever you pay your staff, whenever you make that information provision about what's the tax, whether that's weekly or fortnightly, to at that point in time send it to Inland Revenue, not wait for that once a month. And I'll talk later about some of the things that we're doing to actually help with the information provision. Let's get back to Joss and think about what his world could look like and indeed will look like. So as soon as he registers with Companies Office, I want us to be acting on that information. Not to be harassing Joss to pay some tax, he doesn't need to, he's got a business to run, but to actually help him understand how to set up good business records, to think about how to run a business effectively. We might do that in partnership with others because there are plenty of organisations that can help you with great business software. But I've got the trigger piece of information that allows us in real time to help that business think about the fact that if they're going to have a successful business, they need good business systems. So, let's use some of the technologies that's there already to help get the right information to Joss at the right time. That might be via his mum, who, when clicking into Facebook to see if she can figure out what he's really up to, realises that actually through an ad that pops up with her, there's this thing called MyOb or Zero. Who knows how we can do that, but there are many, many different channels that we can use to actually get the right information to the right person at the right time, not just flood them with loads and loads and loads of forms and leaflets that are hard to understand. So, we'll start to engage with Joss, introduce him to an online assistant who he can ask things of as they come into his mind, not waiting for us to send him out something. Whenever Joss turns a profit, let's help him with some different options to manage his cash flow. And again, that work is already underway. The legislation that we need for that is already going through Parliament. So we're building the systems that will allow people to have choices that meet their business needs about how and when they pay us, not hitting that wonderful day where you've suddenly got to find 40k. And the work that we've been doing with the accounting payroll firms is getting us to the point and is already there for GST to allow Joss to actually use his business software to meet his tax obligations. So every couple of months, his business software will tell him that a GST return is ready to be sent to Inland Revenue. Having pulled that information straight out from the records he's keeping every day, all he has to do is press a button. We worked this year with MyOb and Zero, and that service is enabled already for customers that use those 2 software products, and we're working with the rest of the industry on the same basis for GST, for pay-as-you-earn, and for all taxes. So there's already been about 50,000 GST returns that have been submitted by people simply by pressing a button effectively from their software, not having to fill in another form for us. If I could abolish every IR whatever, I will. So really thinking about things from the perspective of him. When he starts to sell that beer on TradeMe, why wouldn't we put up a pop-up that say, hey, remember that this is going to be needed to be accounted for? Why do we wait until he gets something wrong as opposed to giving him advice at the time? And that's exactly what we intend to do through our new systems and processes. So for us, adding technology in that's about analytics, about information, and about us being able to support customers by designing our processes around them in ways that actually support them is what transformation is all about. It's about faster communications with other government departments, and it's about streamlined interactions. One of the things that we did, again, a couple of years ago that I'm really proud of is that we changed the process for how to get an IRD number if you have a new baby. About 50% of parents get an IRD number for their child within 6 months of birth, either because they want to set up something like KiwiSaver, or because they're due some family assistance, or there might be some child support. That's another thing to remember to do when you're pretty busy. So a couple of years ago, we changed the system so that rather than having to come directly to Inland Revenue and tell us when the child was born, what the child's name is, all the things that you'd already done whenever you registered that child's birth, you simply tick a box at the end of the birth registration process, and we send out the IRD number automatically. 95% of parents have, not surprisingly, taken up that option. It's another example of how we can actually fit things into people's lives seamlessly to make it better for JOS and for the people of New Zealand. So as I say, that's the core of what we're about, is that fitting things into people's lives. But for me, it's actually also about how we go about this huge transformation to make it successful. So a couple of things. I've already mentioned the important work that we're doing with our partners, whether they're in the private sector or in government. And one of the things we have learned to really do differently is collaborate. Collaborate for outcomes with people. So when I talk about partners, when I talk about the work we've done with Xero and MyOB, it's not a matter of us procuring through government procurement their services. It's about us sitting down and designing with them in collaboration a way of supporting their clients to meet their tax obligations. So there aren't bits of paper knee-deep that have gone through legal departments. We are actually working and designing together different ways of doing our business. That was pretty out there when we started, but now it's simply how we work and how we want to work. The same whenever we're working, as I say, with other government departments, understanding how to collaborate, how to move away from thinking that everything that needs to be done about tax needs to be done by my department. It doesn't. If there's a better way to fit something seamlessly into the thing that the business person or the citizen was already doing, I want to know about it, and we want to go there and find out how to do it. In terms of our governance, because we are running a rather large transformation that is changing our policies, our technology, is upskilling our people, is changing our legislation, is delivering different services. It's completely encompassing all of our business and our stakeholders. Obviously, we need to make sure that we actually manage that as a programme pretty effectively. And you'll know well that the media will soon tell me if I'm not doing it effectively. So we've really thought about the governance. And yes, we're still using waterfall for some elements, but we're also thinking about how and where our agile methodologies much more suitable for what we're doing. So, we have a bimodal model of governance that probably is heresy to some, but it is actually working for us. A practical example of our more agile approach is really around that customer design piece. So, we have created an in-house testing lab, and that's where we're using with tax agents and customers to iteratively design the customer experience and their processes and engagement with that new system. With their feedback already we've made a number of tweaks to the services that will go live in the first part of the new year. But that system isn't just about testing in advance. We will maintain that right through, during and after go live, because I know that whatever goes out on day one will immediately create some opportunities for enhancements and improvements as customers actually work with it in real life. So really thinking about how we engage our customers to help us with the design and the ongoing design of the system. Our new core system has a huge amount more flexibility in it. One of the things that has been a challenge for us as a department, particularly in recent years, is that it can take 2 to 3 years to implement a piece of government policy, a new piece of legislation. I'm really pleased to say our new core software, again, is built and operates on agile methodologies, and so our ability to change in the future is going to be significantly greater. And so, as I say, collaboration has been a key for us. And one of the people, of course, that we have been collaborating with is Accenture, but also Assurity. So it's been fantastic to be able to work with Will and the team and to learn from them as we go. And I would say that's my other lesson about transformation is we learn every day. We talk about delivering 4 key stages, but actually already we're learning and changing what we're doing, and we haven't officially delivered stage 1 yet, but we're on the way to doing so. So our transformation is very much a joint venture. It's a joint venture centred on the citizen. It's operating in collaboration with customers, with the citizen, with partners across government and across the private sector, and looking to build a much more collaborative and agile model for how we do business in the future. It's exciting, it's demanding, it's slightly scary some days. It's hugely inspiring because of the opportunity that we have to actually ensure that the tax system continues for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, however long, in a way that supports the people of New Zealand. And as I said, that's the thing that I'm most passionate about, is creating a way of operating that government simply fits seamlessly into your lives so that you can make the contribution that I know you want to make to creating an NZ that is a fantastic place to live and work. Kia ora tātou, happy to answer any questions around any of that or anything else if you really want to talk about tax.